Hi, everyone. It is Catherine Agupjan from Sisters for Fi, and today I am going to be talking to you about the basics of budgeting. For many of us, budgeting will be our first foray into really handling our money better. And a budget basically is just you telling your money where it's supposed to go. And it's important to kind of have that mindset in that you control your money, not that it controls you. And just like we go to a job, we have tasks assigned to us, we need to do the same thing for our money. It's important to keep that in mind because sometimes when we get that income, we may not know where it's going or what it's doing. And by the end of the month, we're trying to figure out like, where did it go? How did I spend my money? So we'll do basics of budgeting. If you have on hand, grab a piece of paper or a notebook, anything to write on. We're going to start simple, and then I will also show you some options as to do budgeting either on a spreadsheet as well as all of the available apps out there that you can use to really manage your money better. I will caveat that with budgeting, there's no one way to budget. Let me tell you that. There are multiple versions of how to do a budget, and sometimes it depends on your style, the accountability that you need to make sure that all of your money is being tracked properly, as well as perhaps the size of your family and what your goals and needs are. Your budget should reflect some of your values and what you want to spend money on. If it doesn't, then there's a disconnect there. So you have to take a look at what's going on with how you're spending money. So first things first is just a budget is just an accounting of your income minus your expenses. And expenses in this case is going to range, will include our fixed expenses as well as variable expenses. So expenses that change each month or each week, as well as our savings goals and our debt goals. So reduction of debt should also be included in that. Again, every dollar that you make should have a job, whether that's to pay bills, gift to people, invest for the future, save for future travel or anything else. We need to make sure we specify what each of the dollars is going to do or is doing within the next week or so. Okay, so let's go to our sheet of paper. So simple. We'll start with our income. So write down what you make within a month. This can, depending on your family structure, this might be a combined household income, or it may be just your income. And it can also should include like side hustles, places where money is coming to you that you can readily spend. And good to have this in mind. This will be your net income too. What I'll go cover a little bit later too is like some of the ways that we can reduce some of the taxes for the pay that we're getting through just saving earlier. So get your income. So let's do first things first. Second thing is you're going to list out all of your fixed expenses. So fixed expenses are expenses that do not change from month to month. And this will most likely include a mortgage or rent, car payments if you have any, car insurance or other insurance. You might have subscriptions because these are fixed. They don't change each month. And any other things that you're paying each month. Now, if you don't know, then that's something that we'll have to either go into your credit card statements to see what are you paying monthly for. Go through those debit statements, what's being transacted. Sometimes we may have forgotten that we signed up for a subscription plan or some other kind of cost that we have not reviewed in a while. So it's good to kind of review that often, and also to review if you really need some of these subscriptions that you have signed up for. A lot of us, I think, are keeping some things because we don't want to lose out on what some of what these subscriptions are doing, when in fact it probably has no benefit to us at all. So keep that in mind. I also encourage you to, one, review it often, and two, if you want, pause it. Pause it for a month or two. See if you really miss whatever that subscription was giving you. And if not, it might be time to cancel. Okay, so that's income, and then you have fixed expenses. And then your next one is your variable expenses. Now, this will range from clothing, maybe groceries, restaurant, gifting, any other outing that you might have. And again, because this is variable, you can't necessarily tell how much these will be. But you can estimate how much these are by going through some of your past spending or past statements. If you're new and you're like, well, I don't know exactly, like, I don't know how much I should be spending for groceries, what you can start doing is just tracking it. Track it from week to month until you get to a point where, like, well, I average around $400 a month on groceries, or I average $100 on going out. So that's one thing that you're gonna do, is just to make sure that your variable expenses are listed and you have it kind of at the average that you're spending. Now, one of the key things that you're gonna look for is at the end of all this. So what you're gonna do is, you have your income, you're gonna deduct your income minus fixed expenses minus variable expenses. So what you'll get, what you'll have at the end of it is perhaps some money left over. And some people most likely will put that to savings. So the leftover money goes to savings. Now, one of the challenge with doing that is that you end up saving last, and that means you may not have enough to even save for that month or that week. So I'm going to challenge you to rethink where your saving comes from and move it up before you even pay all your other expenses. The next thing too, maybe debt. So you might have debt on that same line item. What are you paying debt after you pay all of your existing expenses or before? Keep that in mind to where you have that in your structure of payouts, so that we can prioritize really what's important to you. So what it's important to realize is that fixed expenses, you can see that, is actually where you need to optimize. Some people make the mistake of optimizing variable expenses. And most people will say, well, I am going to cut back on eating out, or I'm going to need to make sure that my grocery budget this week doesn't go over. The problem with this is that it leads to a lot of deprivation, and it leads to a lot of maybe overspending because you're cutting back so much on one area. So what I would always encourage you to do is look at your fixed expenses and figure out how to optimize it as much as you can. That means maybe finding lower rent, house hacking, getting a roommate, shopping for new car insurance. $20 a month might seem small, and it might require you to do an hour's work, but it's $20 times 12 months out of the year. That's a good amount of savings. So optimize your fixed expenses from this point forward. Anything extra, you might want to just go directly to savings, and also have a plan for debt. I'll cover a debt reduction strategy in another session, but income, expenses, savings, and debt, we need to make sure that we are counting what we're earning to pay some of those things, to pay those things out, so that there is, one, we're saving for ourselves, but we're also getting ourselves out of debt and making sure that at some point, all of our income will either go to savings or cover what we really want to do most in life. And that will be kind of like your expenses that you want to spend money on, like the experience, what you value out of life. So that's the basics of it. This might seem a little daunting for those that are starting and kind of looking at your expenses. I don't stay on that emotion. I want you to just go through it, work through the numbers, work through the exercise, figure out where you are and what you need to change. And there's no, unfortunately, we can't go back to the past, right? But we can move forward. So once you know where you are with your money, with your budget, then it's time to take action. Okay. So I'm going to pause here just for a few seconds. And if you have any questions as I am going through this, or I'm going to go through a spreadsheet in a little bit, let me know in the comments below, and I will try to answer it live on here. And let's see. Okay. I'm also going to share in the comment section now. A spreadsheet for us to use. This is through Google Sheets, so it should be fairly easy to access and copy over. If you have trouble with it, you have to let me know. What you'll need to do though is copy it for your own use so that you're not using this template that I have. And this is a monthly budget breakdown. It has some entries already for some of the most common items and categories for spending. I'm not even sharing, sorry guys. Okay, so this is the monthly budget breakdown worksheet. When you click on the link, you'll have an option to copy it, so you'll have to copy it and save it to your own account. Now, this particular spreadsheet is a little bit more in depth, right? As I said, it has a lot of expenses based on some of the most common ones that we have, and but try to get as much of it here so that it is available for you to use. You can always switch out if there's something that's like, well, I'm not saving for that. I should, zero that out or added something else that you're saving for. It's also important that you evaluate your budget often. Budgets can change because you as a human changes, your needs and wants changes, your income changes. So it's good to review it over time. It's also, you might find that as you kind of work through a particular like budget type, that you want to switch to something else. So there's a lot of budget options out there. So find one that really speaks to you as far as your maybe like accountability. Like what kind of accountability do you want? Do you need to make sure that you're on track for your money? And pen and paper is an excellent way to just do this. Get a notebook. It's an easy way to just track it. There's a bunch of budget planners you can find online. There's also the spreadsheet, and there's a bunch of apps that I'll also cover a little bit later on. Those apps can be good if you're techie, kind of want things at the ready, and want to be able to really break down what you're spending on and where it's going. Okay. All right, so here we are with our budget breakdown. This is by month, and here we're looking at our income a little bit differently. We're looking at our gross income, which is 100%. We're also going through what's our hourly income based on that. And this is just something to keep in mind, because sometimes if we're salaried, and even if we have an hourly job, we're thinking that the pay that you get is the pay that comes out at the end of the paycheck. But that's not the case, because at the end, there's taxes that get taken out, Social Security, state taxes, you might have health insurance or other like retirement benefits and other commuter benefits that might be taken out. So by the end of that, that really cuts down your hourly wage. It's also important to kind of look at how much you get paid per hour, so that each time you do something, you can say to yourself, is this t-shirt worth 1 hour of your time? Is this drink, this cocktail that I'm having, worth half of my time? So something to just, again, kind of reshift your mindset about spending, instead of just spending because it's the thing to do, or because like what everyone else is doing. Rethink why you're spending it, and really how much it's costing you besides just a dollar amount. Time is money. Like, we're all exchanging our time for money. So it's important to keep that in mind and get that kind of to sink in, so that in the end, you're starting to kind of save money, so that the money actually buys you time in the future. And well, I'll cover that a little bit later too. All right, so step 2 is our pay deductions. Now, again, you can probably just look on your paycheck to see how much these are. There's some percentage here that's static for most people, and this will vary depending on your state and other benefits that you take out from work. But again, I want you to keep note of this, because you can modify some of this. So some of these things will change if you change some of your pre-tax benefit elections. You can get more money on your net, or less, depending on how you adjust that. But also keep in mind that you're contributing to these services that you may end up, these services for the future that that you'll be using, and or your current day-to-day like living expenses too. All right. So you got your net income. This is what we covered, and this is all of our fixed expenses. There's a good amount of them, and there's a section here where I specifically put down emergency fund, and this is where I think it's important to also have a fixed line item for certain savings that's important to you. And yes, we're going to consider an emergency fund an expense, so that you think of this money, you spend this money, and it goes somewhere else. So like another account that you keep there until there's an actual emergency, and until you need to cover some housing costs, or a car repair, or even maybe a medical emergency that you need to cover. So we need to make sure that this is something that we kind of plan for and have in our budgeting scenarios. Okay, and the other area is debt repayment. So this is important if you have a student loan, credit card, and other debt, that you have a plan of action to see how much monthly of your income will go to debt. And there's a bunch of calculators you can use online, but it's important to figure out how much of your income goes there, so that you can, one, really reduce and eliminate this debt, and two, make sure that whatever money you're coming in is going, some portion of it is going towards that, and it's not just going back to spending. And the step 6 is all of your variable expenses. And here I specify Amazon because sometimes it's just easier to lump everything to Amazon, but that might be necessary for you to break that out, right? Because Amazon provides so many services, including groceries, that you want to make sure that you are accounting for, again, every dollar that you are earning, you should be assigning what it's for. And it's also, I recommend putting a line item for things that you want, like entertainment, maybe things that are like things that you want to do that's cool to you that you want the budget for. Make sure that's on there as well. And then, of course, plan savings. Many of us might have dreams and plans to go on vacation or fund a wedding, or maybe get out of this the 9 to 5 and do a freedom fund. Make sure you plan for that too. And it can be as little as like $25 a month. Start with that. Like $25 a month adds up if you keep continuing doing it. And it's important to, again, put this in your budget, because once you define that this $25 is going towards my vacation fund, you're less likely to spend it on things that you find at like the store or somewhere else. So keep that in mind. And lastly, again, evaluate your budget often, review each category, eliminate what is not a need. So this is kind of important. Find ways to share costs with friends or families as well too. Like there's so many ways to do so, and reducing those fixed expenses can be one of the pillars of making sure that you're starting to build savings and build wealth and investment. The next thing is also, for all of your other fixed expenses, negotiate lower payments for them. Shop for insurance. Shop for a new phone plan. Negotiate. Use the fact that you've been with them for a while. So what can they do for you? Same thing with subscriptions. Same thing with debt too. Like you can call up your credit card companies and ask them, I want to lower my APR. What can you do? I've been like a member of a card holder for a few years. Let me know what's possible. And this will not only help you save money, but it also just gives you just a little bit more cushion overall. And lastly, again, a budget is telling your money where it should go, because you control it. All right, so this is the spreadsheet. Could be fairly straightforward to use, I think, after some time. You just need to make sure you enter all of that, all of your information here, and then you can also just do a quick like summation and difference to get your final number. Okay, so let me see. All right, now what I'll do now is move on to some options for you to use, apps for you to use, that's on your phone, easy to access. Like if you're not like a spreadsheet person, but you still want to track what's going on, there's a lot of apps out there now that do this. First one is Mint. Mint is free at this point. They do have ads to share with you, but Mint was one of the forefathers of budgeting. And what all of these apps basically do is link up all of your credit cards, debit cards together into one dashboard, and it'll tell you like where things are going, what's your monthly spending, what categories you can do. And I used Mint for a while personally, when I was working off to pay my own student loans, a car loan, and a credit card loan. And at that point in time, I was getting paid once a month. So I would receive on the first of the month, like today, a large influx of cash to my checking account. But after a day or two, everything started deducting, right? So all my fixed expenses started deducting: rent, car payment, blah, blah, blah. And it's like you come to the midpoint of the month and you're like, holy, where did all the money go? What will I do for the rest of the week? And this is where this is why it's important to really figure out, like, is this where my money is supposed to be going? Like, do I want it to go here? If not, how can I get rid of this expense? And Mint is a great tool for that. They have a lot of options for you to use. And you can also, like, I used to do like my mint when I took the bus to go to work to New York City, and just updating categories and really changing and looking at where my money was going. So it's a good option for you to have to use. This is free off of both App Store and Android. The second option is YNAB. So YNAB stands for You Need a Budget, and it's also a budgeting tool. And YNAB is unique in that it uses what's called a zero-based budgeting, and it's kind of similar to what we did, where you have to get at a zero. So it wants you to allocate where each of your dollar is going. YNAB is very, very popular. It does cost money to use it now because they have a lot of features and a lot of like workshops, I believe, that you can pop into to make sure that you're using YNAB to the best of its intended design and use. There is a free trial for it, so you can use it for over a month to see if it works for you. And if you are a college student, so this is something to keep in mind, if you are a college student or know of one, You Need a Budget, YNAB is free for 1 year to college students. So that can be a life changer, especially if you are a senior or still have access to your college email account and you want to start budgeting so that you can pay off your student loan debt and really get a handle on your money earlier, right? And the last one that I'll show is Good Budget. So this is based on the envelope system. So what some people will do is once they have written out all of their expenses, is that they're going to allocate money for those categories, right? So there might be an envelope for restaurants. You can see that, restaurants. And this is the only cash that I would spend for the month on restaurants. Once it's empty, it's empty. And this is the envelope system. It keeps your money kind of separated. So you focus on that. If anything that's left over, perhaps you end up rolling it to the next month's restaurant budget, or you redistribute to another area of your budget that might need it. So, but for people that want like separation, like you want to see that $100 is going absolutely to groceries, nothing else, this is a good option. Another option too is to put it into little debit cards. So again, you know exactly how much you're supposed to be spending and not overspending. In Good Budget, that's something similar, and you can do that as well too. So there's a whole range of options out there for you to use. And let's see. So yeah, so I would also recommend as you kind of work towards working on your budget is to save a snapshot of your budget as you kind of move forward. So what does this mean? So say this is your budget for October. You might have one for every month after. And what you can start seeing is to see how much your budget has changed and how much perhaps your income has changed. And that can tell you like, hey, you know what, I've been increasing my income, but I'm not saving as much. What's going on? Where is everything going? So a lot of this is also like that right now, the budget is very snapshot, like one point in time. And sometimes you might want to see a trend over time. Like what's going on? Like are my car payments increasing over time? Why? Call them up and ask, what about your gym membership? Why is it increasing? Why did it increase from X amount to another amount in 2 months? What's going on? So those are some things that you want to kind of keep in mind with some of the spreadsheets that you have, that one snapshot, but two, save it so that you can do some of those trend analysis moving forward. Okay. So let me see if there's any questions. I'm going to stop sharing here and then let me see if there's any questions. If not, I will wrap up. Okay, all right. So that's the basics of budgeting. And if you need help or have a question, feel free to ask in the group, or you can comment on this video. This video will be available within the Sisters for Phi Facebook group, and I believe this might also go on YouTube if I can get it working. And so it's available for you to check out there. And then the links to this spreadsheet, as well as all of these other applications, will also be under this video. So let me know if you have any questions, have a comment, or perhaps another tool that you want to share that you found useful and helpful. And so I will leave you again with like the last reminder that there's no way to do a perfect budget. Start with the basics first: income minus expenses, including savings and debt. Understand where your money is going, and be intentional about what you're spending your dollar on. Because once you kind of get your savings rate up, you can use that money to save and invest and really create a new future for yourself. The budget is just the beginning.